live, but we're also on tape. We are back in the bowels of Lee's Music, Magic Mike, Bonnie at the helm, Chris Foulds, Chris the Tardy Bear, and Marty Hastings, Kamloops last week. Where do we start? Another massive news week and so much going on.
Yeah, it never ends. This latest one was Lower Mainland and Coquihalla centered, but we are also involved with the evacuees from Merritt, and we're involved with the fact that we were until recently a dry island unto ourselves. We had no way to get to the coast aside from inflated airfare rates. Yeah,
Mike, is your mic up right now? Because everywhere you look, people have been affected by this.
Oh, it's been crazy because with our guitar company, we're trying to ship out guitars. And UPS isn't shipping anything ground, so our shipping rates have gone up like triple. So we're not directly affected by the floods or the water, but indirectly through shipping and that kind of stuff. It's been a real challenge trying to get guitars out, especially for Black Friday sale week, which is our biggest week of the year.
Right, that's one example. And what about us close to home at KTW?
Yeah, well, it's like a liquid echo, I call it. It's like they got the flooding and it's damaging like hell, but everything from that is affecting everything else. Our paper is actually printed in Coquitlam. We went there a couple of years ago, and we had to switch quickly to the black press operation in Vernon because we couldn't get the papers up here.
Yeah, and flyers, we couldn't get flyers into our paper.
Flyers couldn't get out, and that's a big, that's the bread and butter of our business. But the good news is that our latest edition today, November 24th, arrived safe and sound with all the news and all the flyers and everything else.
And it does have information about how you can win one of these. Chris the Tardy Bear, our Holiday Bear contest, do we call it a contest?
Yeah, I think it's a Holiday Bear contest. Businesses in town have these to give away to loyal customers, and all the information is in the November 24th edition of KTW.
Right, and you can check that out online as well, Chris the Tardy Bear. Mm-hmm. So, is this the new norm, this year that we've gone through as far as the weather, the fires?
Well, I was thinking about that this morning as I had a shower and had deep thoughts. We've talked, we should actually rename this, Kamloops End of the World, because we went through COVID, we went through the fires, we went through the smoke, we went through these floodings, just in this general area. And at a couple of points during our show, we've asked, is this sort of like portends the end of the world? MIT did that study in 1972 that said civilization will collapse in the 2040s, and people kind of laughed it off, but they revisited it.
I made the joke about the end times, and you kind of laughed it off. This could be it, man.
No, this could be it, because it's not getting any better. We had that COP26 meeting in Glasgow where they're trying to get stuff done, but it doesn't seem to get any traction, because to survive, we need to keep doing, to some extent, the stuff that is killing us. It's kind of a weird, catch-22.
I got stuck on the coast, and I'm not complaining. It was basically a country club situation for me. I was staying,
compared to other
people. I was staying in Granville Street in Ocean Park. Mm-hmm. But getting home was scary. I mean, how am I going to get home? How am I going to do my job? How am I going to do this show? How am I going to do my CBC? What was most alarming was just how things turned close to anarchy very quickly down there with the gas situation. I had to get a bunch of gas to get home, but they put this 30-liter thing in place, maximum 30 liters
per visit.
In South Surrey, gas stations were running out of gas, and people were just flocking to gas stations. Tempers were flaring. You probably know somebody, if you have a friend on the coast, who saw some kind of altercation at a grocery store or at the pump. Mm-hmm. And it's just scary to think how quickly things can descend into madness.
Fuel, and water, and water, of course, is the next gold. But they say that, just look up here. The shelves were bare. People rushed to the stores. They didn't have to, and the shelves were bare. And you're right. It could be a day or two from perfection to anarchy. It's very weird.
Yeah, and I did. It's a good opportunity to plug our sponsor, New Leaf Produce Market, because I popped by their store this morning, and their shelves were essentially bare last week because they couldn't get produce up. The trucks are finally limping up Highway 3 now, and they've got some produce back on the shelves, and their juice is still going strong, and you can check that juice out right now in this commercial right here.
Herman, it's a little cold for him. He's got lockjaw, so we can't speak right now. So we're gonna take a tour. We're gonna show you. We've got the commercial juicer here today. He pumps it into the collector, just like that. And then they go into the press right there, and they're washed a little bit. Pasteurized over here on the left. dressed up as Herman over there. I don't know what's going on. Something weird in the air on Halloween. Probably the best thing about this juice though, no chemicals, no added sugar. This is the real deal pure apple juice.
Before we talk about Merritt, just a shout out to my step-grandpa Everett. I found out he can barely see. He's basically blind, but he listens to our show. And it's probably a good thing he can't see because there's just too many terrible things to see these days. Who's Ivan Diaz?
Ivan Diaz is a Merritt resident who was taking photos and posting it to a Merritt Grapevine Facebook page. So we use the photos, give him credit, and his photos are everywhere. Hopefully people are giving him credit. And he took the photos just as the flooding. This is on the 15th of November when the town flooded, and they had to get everyone out right away.
The photos are shocking.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to be back here and Michael covering the story, and what stood out to you about the whole Merritt situation?
Well, the Merritt situation it wasn't directly impacted by the rains. The rains came down the mountains and overwhelmed the Coldwater River. So this is that sort of liquid echo I was talking about. So this is an example of a town being devastated, not directly by this atmospheric river, but by the effects after all that rain fell and the river couldn't hold it all in. It's really sad that today is the 24th and people began returning yesterday. Some people they have the various houses marked with different colors: red, I think, green, and another color. And green means you can go in, but there still could be some damage. Red means you can't go in at all because there's mold issues, there's structure issues. And Linda Brown, the mayor, has said repeatedly that while they want people to get back and they want people to come back to the community, they should be prepared that it's a completely different community now. The river itself has changed its course. Highway 8, which goes from Merritt to Spence's Bridge, is gone forever.
I saw that.
Gone forever, and it's beyond description.
Yeah.
And they were talking yesterday, a highways engineer, if they rebuild it, they might have to go up and over because maybe it wasn't a great idea to run it next to the river.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. People telling the media to wake up as they normally do and focus more on Highway 8 because it's done. Like their roadway is basically done. It could be years until it's
never going to be there again. I don't think because the water's there. So it's really really bad for those people. A lady's missing. Her house got washed away there. So yeah, it's very tragic.
And Kamloops has turned into a hotspot for, I guess, some kindness and helping out evacuees, and we saw that again with the Merritt floods.
Yeah, we had Kamloops set up a emergency operations center at MacArthur Island, which we did during the fires this year and previous years. In fact, this year, that reception center processed the most people ever at one time, 3,000 people at once, which was more than the fires. The wildfire evacuees, they came in waves and stages. But they had 3,000 people coming in 2 days. That's a lot to do. And there's going to be issues. There's people saying, the motel won't honor my stay. But it's getting all sorted out. Mike Farmer said you're going to get retroactively paid for having to put up money for the motels. And there's a lot of volunteers. There's a lot of donations. On our website, kamloopsthisweek.com, and in the newspaper today, we have an article that says exactly where if you want to help, here's how to help. Because if you go to the MacArthur Island, you can't take donations there. They tell you exactly. If you want to give money, you want to give diapers, you want to give food, here's where you do it.
Mm-hmm. Michael Potestio, we had him on the ground at the evacuation center. He's also taking part in the last week clique, which you can see right now.
So the big story on my desk this week is an investigation by TRU's Board of Governors into two high-ranking administrators at the university. Back in February, a group of anonymous whistleblowers sent a complaint to the TRU Board of Governors, which oversees university affairs and is comprised of individuals from within the TRU community and from the greater Kamloops community. And so the board is investigating allegations related to misogyny and disparagement of Indigenous people. And these allegations have yet to be proven, but an investigation is underway. Matt Milovick is essentially one step below the president of the university, and he's in charge of overseeing TRU's $200+ million budget. Meanwhile, Larry Phillips is effectively the head of HR. He oversees our HR and for TRU's university campus with 2,000+ employees. So these are big positions. It's a big deal for these two individuals to be investigated, and we have some details about that in the paper.
First off was the unprecedented flooding that we saw down in Merritt that led to some 3,000 evacuees being sent up here to Kamloops. It was an insane situation. I did a story basically in the first few hours, really, talking with residents about what they experienced, how they're feeling. You think a lot of people would be distraught and just hysterical at such an unprecedented evacuation, but really everybody I talked with was pretty level-headed and kind of just stoic in this time. And so it was really nice to see. I used to report in Merritt, covered the community for a number of years, lived there, so this one kind of hit home a little bit, just knowing exactly where the flooding was and how it was impacting people. The second thing I wanted to touch on was the missing Shannon White case. So we've kind of hit a little bit of an impasse here. We had some developments that came through from the RCMP. Obviously, you don't know exactly what else they may be working on, leads they may be investigating, but as far as public information that's come out, there were 2 sightings of her Jeep that was found abandoned on November 2nd, 2 sightings of it driving out of town and back the previous day, west of town and north of town at basically along Highway 5 and Highway 1 in undisclosed locations. But they've searched thoroughly in those areas and without finding any sign of Shannon, they're basically calling off their search. That doesn't mean that anything is over by any means, but it just shows that they've kind of exhausted efforts in those areas in looking for Shannon, and hopefully there'll be some more developments. Hopefully people will still have tips and video footage possibly to send in. So that's all for me for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
So Jessica Wallace in that piece right there talked about this major developing story, and I thought it'd be good if you can just give some background on how that developed along the way.
Yeah, the story is about investigation at Thompson Rivers University into alleged conduct by 2 senior executives, Matt Milovick and Larry Phillips. It started in February 8th of this year when an anonymous email was sent to the university from 11, and now it's 13 current and former employees complaining about the conduct of these 2 senior executives. We found out about it in the spring, and we've been working on this story for the last 6 months, talking to the complainants and to Karis Campus, who's the spokesperson. She's the law professor there who's on the record as saying, I'm representing these people or I'm advocating for them. And it's just a troubling story that the allegations, and they're unproven, and the investigation's ongoing, but these current and former employees say basically their lives were made hell, and they didn't appreciate some of the conduct and the comments from these 2 executives. We reached out to both of them. Milovick got back to us and said, I'm aware that my professional conduct is being investigated. I welcome a chance to participate, and that's all he's going to say.
And he's essentially in charge of the entire budget.
Yeah, he's basically the guy in charge of everything but the but academics there. He's one step below. He reports to President Brett Fairburn. We know that he received complaints before the investigation started, and we asked True about that, and we just like CBC has a story on it, they sent out a long statement saying here's what we know, we got the complaint, we take it seriously, but until the facts are proven, we can't do anything about these 2 guys. They're continuing working, and they've hired lawyers, they've hired people to investigate it, and they hope to have some kind of conclusion to the investigation in early 2022.
Well, let's get back to the weather carnage in above the Foulds. That's Abbotsford police photo of the Sumas Prairie, which has been completely devastated, a broken dike right there, and this is pretty close to home to you. You grew up in Abbotsford?
Yeah, I grew up not on the prairie. I grew up as you go into through Chilliwack into Abbotsford. That's the big prairie.
City boy, you're an Abbotsford city boy.
I was a city boy. I was up on the ridge, looking down at the the farmland there. Yeah, it's really shocking. We when I lived there and when I worked there in the newspaper, there was flooding there in 1990, 1999 that I covered, and but it wasn't as bad as this. It did cover the entire highway to Whatcom Road, where we all get gas when we come back home, but it didn't do the damage that this did.
Yeah, and Wednesday I was down there on the coast, stuck on the coast, and the Wednesday we were kind of just getting our bearings, getting our feet and recovering, and then there was that fire at Fraser Way RV.
That was just bizarre. That's like just another, and then locusts after that.
I know. It was surrounded by water.
And it was weird because we were watching the live feed, I think on Global, on Mark Madryga's TV station, and the weird thing was it had everything to put it out around it, but you couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It was like a starving guy who couldn't reach for all the food around him. It was bizarre.
It's just more end of days stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Poisonous, billowing
toxic smoke
going
Close
into
your
the air.
windows.
Can't get to it because you're surrounded by.
You can't leave because you'll drown. You can't open your windows because you'll choke to death. I mean, it's the end times. It's horrible. I mean, it was weird how it just happened like that.
Let's flip right now to last week, this week with Mark Madryga. Chris, this came together last minute. How did you manage to wrangle Mark Madryga?
Last minute. You came back from the flood-ravaged Lower Mainland just a couple days ago. We didn't do a show last week because you were stuck in Langley. We wanted to get a show going this week, and obviously the logical topic would be the weather, climate. The climate crisis, I think, as we're calling it now. So I reached out to Mark. It was late yesterday because yesterday's our deadline day, very busy day. I reached out late to him and by Twitter, and I said, "Hey, if you have time, can you come on our show?" And I know he's on Radio NL all the time. He's from Kamloops. I didn't have any expectation because he's a busy guy. He's doing the news. 6 a.m. I get a tweet this morning because we're all up at 6 a.m. most of us, and he says, "Hey, I just got this now. I'm willing to do it," and I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, let's bring him in right now, Mark Madryga.
There he is.
Hey guys, always happy to jump in, especially when it's Kamloops. Come on.
That's right. That's right.
If I can't travel, and I wouldn't travel now to Kamloops, of course, I live in South Surrey. I'm here in Burnaby at Global Studios, so I'm not traveling. But next best thing is to be on with you guys right now.
What is the difference to the layman? You're the chief meteorologist for Global News. What is the difference between the atmospheric river and the Pineapple Expresses I actually enjoyed when they came in when I lived in Abbotsford as a kid?
But atmospheric river, I'm a little concerned it's going to be overused here with every weather system that hits the province and use it all. It has a scale, atmospheric river, so some of them, a 1 would be kind of beneficial rain. We need rain all the time, but a higher level, a higher number would be an intense storm that would cause damage. I hope they don't get overused with the term, they being meteorologists in general or TV meteorologists or Environment Canada. But I prefer to say right now a potent Pacific storm or something like that rather than scaring everyone with atmospheric river.
Now let's call it just a big storm, because when you live on the coast, you're used to the big storms, and they're not uncommon. Even this one isn't uncommon. What was the difference with this one as opposed to recent ones?
Well, the one of the 13th to the 15th that hit us here on the South Coast, it was larger than most Pacific storms, much more intense and longer duration, and a deeper layer of moisture. So we had the heavy rain get into Princeton, for example. They had near Princeton well over 100 millimeters of rain. That's rare. Merritt had a lot less. Kamloops, just printed out the stats, 6 millimeters of rain fell during that big storm versus 300 in Hope.
Wow.
But you can see the effect of the rain shadow effect in Kamloops. But this storm from a couple weekends ago was just massive. It affected more areas than your typical storms, from Squamish to Princeton to the Coquihalla to Victoria, which they brag in Victoria that it never rains there. Well, they had well over 100 millimeters with that storm. But duration was a key as well. It was 48 hours worth. It just kept pounding down with rain, and of course, the freezing level rose, so all the ingredients were there. So it was almost the perfect storm, guys, because freezing level soared. We had snow in the mountains, Coquihalla area, North Shore Mountains, heavy rain on top of it, adding to the flooding. And you touched on this around Merritt earlier in your broadcast, because Merritt itself didn't have the heaviest rain, but it was the heavy rain in the vicinity on top of that snow that washed down into the river. So the one 2 weeks ago, massive, almost a perfect storm. The one or the two coming now for Thursday and into again Saturday for the South Coast. Two separate ones. There'll be a break on Friday. No rain at all, which is great because we'll get 24 hours of rain, nothing, and then 24 more hours, maybe 36. So that's a better scenario rather than the one we had 2 weeks ago. And that, sure, there'll be the total amount of rain, but at least a break between the two. If there's any silver lining, it's that.
Are you worried we're going to see storms like this more often?
Yeah, I am. I'm not blowing the panic whistle or pushing the panic button as much maybe as some are. I do believe in climate change. I also believe in freak storms, which we've always had. So to answer your question, I'm a little concerned they'll be more frequent. I mean, we had the heat wave in June, and I was following Kamloops closely through June and of course the Lytton scenario, and those temperatures in late June were just totally off the charts. I mean, statistically ridiculous. So there was that extreme event, and now what we're seeing, and of course the fires in between. So yes, I'm concerned that these may be more common and more frequent, these extreme weather events. I'm not convinced they're going to happen every 1 or 2 years. I mean, what happened in the summer was statistically a 1 in 1,000 heat wave, 1 in 1,000 year heat wave. Yeah. And what's happened now is obviously huge. I am somewhat concerned that we're going to see more frequent events like this as we go through time. But I've also been around long enough to know that we've had freak weather events since I've been doing the weather, and I was following the weather in Kamloops since I was 7 years old, a long time ago. Yeah. The flood of 72, you guys are way too young for this. The flood of 72 that was the highest water level in the century, the 20th century in Kamloops. It flooded all, lower levels. Major storms, snowstorms, Typhoon Frida down here in 1962 in the South Coast, biggest windstorm in history. So we've always had extreme events, always. I could name 1,000. But the question is, will these happen more frequently? I say probably, but I shouldn't say this. I'm not quite the alarmist that some are, right. But I do care about the environment. I am worried that climate change is an issue for sure. But I wouldn't say that, oh my gosh, we're going to have this happen 2 years from now. Again, you know what I mean?
I'm with you there. I agree with you. That's good to hear, actually. Well, we appreciate you joining us. We know you're a busy guy, so thanks a lot for hopping on this morning.
My pleasure. I could talk forever. You guys are awesome, and anytime. I appreciate it.
He's a great guy. I remember seeing this magazine article. I think it was Vancouver Magazine. I didn't want to bring it up there, but when he first started with Global News, it was him, David Jones, and a third guy, and they had them on the cover of the magazine, shirtless, wearing just bathing suits in the winter, running into the English Bay, and I think it was like a weather hunks or something like that. But we should try to. We should have asked him.
We missed our big opportunity to ask him about that.
I just thought about that now, but he's a nice guy. He didn't remember. I met him once at a Blazers game. He was just in the concourse, but he seems to be a decent dude. Everyone who's met him, I say he's a really good guy. I like the fact that he's still nerding out over the weather stats, because I'm fascinated by that too. Yeah. But he actually gets paid for that, which is kind of cool.
One more guy that I thought was a breath of fresh air is Vanni Sartini. And Bonnie, if you can throw that slide up there now, the soccer coach guy, if possible. We were supposed to talk to him on this show last week, and then we couldn't do the show. And the Whitecaps were playing Kansas City in the playoffs, and I still think we're going to play just for a slice of life, feel-good interview.
No,
Any thoughts on Vanni Sartini?
Oh, he's like full of life, this guy, and he's got this philosophy that you think his players would buy into, and you see some of the videos of him with his players, and when you were talking to him, just his outlook on life, and then even after the game, because we were going to play this, like you say, last Wednesday, in preparation for the Whitecaps' big playoff game, which they lost 3-1 in Kansas City. After the game in Kansas City, he was being spoken to, and his just in defeat, he was victorious. Yeah. His comments were just fantastic.
And he came in at a time when the club was reeling. I mean, allegations.
Off and on the field, they were a mess.
Right. They fired their coach, Mark Dos Santos. They were at the bottom of the table, and he led them to the playoffs, and they got into the playoffs with his kind of joie de vivre.
It's like a culture change, right? And you need someone like that at the top to, you're right, yeah, he's a breath of fresh air, as you say.
And you'll see that right now in this interview right here.
So honored and proud to be your coach. Portland, Salt Lake, they can send us to the moon.
I think what's been endearing you to the fan base is winning, but also your passion, your flair, your joie de vivere. And
very good.
was that okay? Was that okay?
Yeah. It was good.
Where does that come from? Your passion for the game.
Well, it's I'm first and foremost a fan of the game. Soccer has been my biggest passion through all life since was a kid, and I'm also very, I would say, passionate and outgoing person that is not scared to show his emotion.
From the first one to the second one to the third one to the end of the game, because for sure we're gonna do a great game. So, su, andiamo, vinciamo, e
Well, let's talk about that, because I watched your press conference the other day, and you were in a spirited mood, and you said that we will win in Kansas City.
Whitecaps will play Sporting Kansas City in the playoffs?
No, we'll beat Sporting Kansas City. It's different.
Okay. The result was needed as Salt Lake scored in the...
And not everybody is going to love that in Kansas City. I mean, do you worry about how your brashness is going to be received sometimes?
I actually don't care, to be honest, and because I think that when I say those kind of things is to fire up our environment, and then if you watch the entire press conference, I said a lot of time that Kansas City is a very good team, and we need to do a very good job in order to beat them. So I think that what you said is true. We need always to be respectful to the opponents and to everyone that we are talking with. But and that's the basic. But after being respectful, we don't have to be scared to be, I would say, confident and trustful of our ability and what we can.
Because tonight we win, even if you're down 2-0. Andiamo, dai!
There's been talk about the party that was had. We've talked about you celebrated the game.
Last thing for me here. Do you wish you were playing tomorrow, or are you glad that it's in 2 weeks so you can really let loose tonight?
No. I wish that it's okay in 2 weeks, because tonight we're getting so drunk that tomorrow we're not going to be able to play. Well, I think we did a miracle, pure and simple.
But I also heard that you are an espresso guy, 6 or 7 espresso. What's the actual number per day of espressos you're draining?
Again, six is maybe the average. Sometimes I go even the day of the game even more, because the day of the game, let's say the couple of hours before the game, it's like it's rushed the adrenaline and you don't know what to do. And every 20 minutes, let's take another espresso. Let's take another. I know it's not healthy, but luckily the game is only once a week.
He's not the coach. He's the group. Okay, always. So I want to thank you guys, and I want to give you a big round of applause.
Phenomenal.
And now, ask whatever you want. I'm going to invent today. Go.
All right, phenomenal. We got lots of questions.
Some of your speeches, I've noticed you use, I don't know what you're saying in Italian. It's like what are you saying?
Sometimes it's andiamo, forza. It means, come on, let's go.
Tutti insieme, su, andiamo, 3 punti, vinciamo, dai!
And then I use the word 3 punti, that means 3 points. Every time that, because we win, we get 3 points.
Well, I thank you for your time and for being yourself, and I hope you are able to continue being yourself and you don't get muzzled by anyone.
Thank you, Har. We'll go to Emmanuel.
Hey, Ronnie. Congrats on the win. Yeah, sorry on the draw that gets into the playoffs.
Manuel has been kidnapped by the aliens.
Emmanuel, the audio is a little fuzzy. I don't know if it might be the headset, maybe.
I hope to. I hope to. So yeah, but I think I will continue to be myself for sure. No problem.
Thanks, Coach. Remember to mix in water tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Hydration is always important.
Okay, final thoughts on the show.
Well, it's like another epic disaster show. The show was a little bit of a disaster.
Yeah, it was.
which is it's good because we're talking about disasters. I like the fact that Mark Madryga can explain that to the layman so we understand a little bit more, especially how that atmospheric river forms and why we shouldn't call all these events atmospheric rivers.
Yeah. I did like his take on the fact that let's not get too alarmist about everything, because it's so easy to get alarmist with everything that we talk about and that's gone on this year, to just think that's going to happen all the time. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. Hopefully we get through this time and things are better next year.
If next summer we don't have 50-degree heat, we don't have another plague, and we don't have a flooding, I'm gonna relax. But until then, I'm gonna be a little bit on pins and needles.
All right, last chance to say hello to our guy, Herman Holt, the New Leaf Produce Market. Get on down there, support them. They're going through a bit of a tough time, just like we did on this show today. Thanks again to Magic Mike and to Bonnie. For Chris, I'm Marty. We'll see you last week.
Wait.